G'day everyone, and welcome to the Feed My Mind podcast, and thank you for tuning into this frequency. My name's Anthony Ross, and I started this podcast because I'm passionate about two things in life. One of them is bringing out the best in others. I love to see people succeed and grow and become the best possible version of themselves. And if I can play even the smallest part in helping people on their journey, it gives me great joy and satisfaction. The other thing I'm passionate about is being curious and having an open mind for continual learning. I feel that when we attain new information, it provides perspective, which can change the way that we view our world and our place in it, which is where a lot of personal growth comes from. And that's why I'm here. Each episode, I'll be speaking with fascinating guests from all walks of life, hoping that there might be some insights or something that's going to resonate with you, which is going to help you on your journey to becoming the best version of yourself. If you like the podcast and want more information, head to our website, feedmymind.com.au, and follow us on social media. I'd like to give a special thank you to local Melbourne artist, Hawaii 94, for that beautiful introduction from the song titled Forever. All right, it's time to feed your mind. G'day everyone. This is a special episode where I talk with bodybuilding champion Rocco Oppedisano. This was an unbelievable podcast, and we ended up chatting for over 2.5 hours. And because of this, I've separated the podcast into two separate parts. Part one, which you're listening to right now, we talk about everything from his professional bodybuilding career to building an empire. We also cover the importance of mindset and the state of play in bodybuilding today, especially taking a look at being natural versus using steroids. In part two, which will be released in the following week, we deep dive into all of his workout programs and nutrition, as we decided it was best if we put all of these into a separate podcast with all of these juicy bits. So stay tuned and follow us for all of the updates. Hope you enjoy. Good morning, everyone. We are live on the Feed My Mind podcast, and I'm very excited today to have Rocco Oppedisano as our guest. So, Rocco, welcome.
Hello, Ross.
Thank you. Now, I'm very excited for this podcast because of all of your achievements that you've accomplished over the years and the success that you've had, and obviously the lessons that you're able to share with everyone. So I'm just going to read out a quick overview of some of your achievements over the years, which I think is absolutely remarkable. So you've been in the bodybuilding industry for over 40 years. You won Mr. Australia in 1976. You still hold the record for winning the most for Mr. Australia in the shortest amount of time, with 21 months worth of training at only 21 years of age. Mr. Australasia in 1979, New York's Most Muscular Man in 1978. You won Australia's Most Muscular Man 3 times in 1976, 1979 and 1980. Mr. Southeastern Australia in 1981. You founded the first professional bodybuilding organisation in Australia, the Pacific Bodybuilding International, from 1979 to 1988, promoting over 90 bodybuilding contests with 2,000 muscle men and women. You've also started Australia's first muscle magazine, Muscle Australia, publishing 34 issues, which was eventually distributed in 18 different countries. You've published over 117 books, from weight training, muscle growth, physical and mental health, selling over 150,000 copies with some of them, with 8 bestsellers. You've owned 3 gyms over years, as well as a legendary Muscle Gym Australia. And you also formulated a health range of naturopathic supplements, which ended up being the second biggest supplement company in Australia. So I hope I've got a lot of things covered then, but that is quite a resume.
Well, thank you, Anthony. Yeah, you got it all right there.
Yeah.
Certainly, being at my age, I can't even remember doing all that.
Yeah. You know? Well, there's a lot that you've accomplished, and it's absolutely fascinating, and I think you've got a really interesting story to tell. So maybe if you just give us a bit of a background of how it all started and where you came from sort of prior to bodybuilding, and then we can go into the nitty-gritty of your career.
Well, the bodybuilding started many years ago when I did a little bit of martial arts with Mighty Apollo. And, I was good at martial arts with a past street fighting background. It became easy, but it also became boring because being a past street fighter, I figured didn't really need it. But on his walls, he had all these wonderful paintings of bodybuilders. And every time we talk about martial arts, he'd look up at these paintings and always say, now, they're the real men, and he'll constantly say that they're the real men, they're the most unbeatable men. And that got into my mind. And I go to Mighty Apollo, I want to be one of those men. Why why do martial arts if you keep praising those men?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, that's a lot of hard work. You know, you got to live for a long time. You got to diet. And I said, and I say, how do I start? And he goes, oh, I've got some free weights there. And I go, all right, I'll start with some of the free weights. And then I started, I went to another gym that had a more complete gym, the Oasis gym in Little George Street in Melbourne, which the Hyatt on Collins sits there right now. Anyway, I went into that gym and I go to myself, gee, there's a lot of big men. And I saw how they train, and I saw all the little skinny men train. And I studied the way the big men trained and asked a lot of questions and how they got big. And then I discovered the short rep. Mm-hmm. See, the non-lock movement. I discovered that by asking questions in a gym, all the ones that did that seemed to have a lot of big muscle. So I applied that to my program. Then I got on to... back then, the big champions of bodybuilding was Franco Columbu and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mm-hmm. And then I got on to Columbu. Franco Columbu was selling programs. I got onto his program, but it didn't mention the non-lock system or the short rep. So I figured I'll use this program, but apply what I learnt in the gym. And that's how I got started developing real quickly. And but what really inspired me to become, I had a first to be strong. I just had to be strong. It's an ego thing. I didn't want anyone in the gym stronger than me. I don't even know where it come from, but it was inside. And I just try and get a personal best. Every time I get a personal best, I'd thank God for it, you know, because I figured that's where it all comes from. And I just become so strong that even all the big guys in the gym couldn't match me strength.
Yeah.
And not realising that I'm getting bigger, but I wasn't looking at me getting bigger. I wasn't checking myself always in a mirror. In my mind, it was just being strong. And I go in the gym and I go, look, the only way I could really get strong is not to feel pain. Mm. And I said, because I see a lot of people grunting and groaning and screaming, and I go to myself, gee, how come I don't grunt and groan when I train? You know, I'm silent trainer, and yet pushing the big weight. And they said, oh, you know, a lot of them come back to me and say, oh, look, I've just trained 2 days. I had to recover. And I go, what do you mean recover? You got to recover? And he goes, yeah, I got to recover. And I go, I just did I'm sure I did more training than you, and I'm off to a party. How come I don't need to recover?
Yeah.
You know? And they laugh. What? He goes, you don't recover? No, what's recovery? I go, you know, I was like 19 and a half years old back then, and I didn't understand this recovery, but I figured, hey, I go, how come you got to recover? What, do you get all sore? And I go, oh, yeah, my whole body's wrecked. And I said, gee, well, I don't need to recover. I love me parties. Mate, the last thing I do is waste my life laying down, mm-hmm. you know. And he go, but you're lifting big weights all the time. And I go, yeah, but I think I don't see it as big weights, and I don't feel pain. Maybe that's why I don't need to recover. I don't know. Yes, I was like, in their minds back then, I was like abnormal to them, you know, and they watched everything I do. They started asking questions, what do I eat? And because I was making gains in front of their eyes so fast, that I was like the Pied Piper, you know. They'd follow me around everywhere, check what I eat, every little thing. But I was a bit cheeky because some of the ones were a bit cocky, and the ones who got a bit cocky, you know, and a bit disrespectful, I said, I'll teach them a lesson, you know. And I go, and I'd say, how many bananas you eat, Rock? And I said, 100. I said, I've got to have 100 bananas before the workout, and just something happens. Never in my mind I thought I would actually do that.
Yeah.
But the word got out that everyone's puking and consuming 100 bananas. You know, even to this day, it's remembered. It's still floating around the gyms throughout Australia on this 100 banana. You know?
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, so that was funny. And then I didn't have the heart to tell them the truth. And then after a while, how do you do it? Oh, look, I only did it once. I just thought, why'd you do it? To see how much my body could handle.
So did you actually eat 100 bananas once, or that was more just telling other people?
That.
Yeah.
No, I told him that. Most bananas I eat is 3 or 4
Yep.
at once. That's about it. But nearly, I really wasn't really into bananas. I just thought I'd have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
You know.
So how old were you when you sort of first went in and started all of your work at the gym?
19 years old, officially at the Oasis.
Yep.
When I was with Mighty Apollo, while I was there doing martial arts, I just looked at the equipment, just picked up a bar here and there, but didn't really do anything.
So your first Mr. Australia title, you were able to get there in 21 months at the age of 21. What was that like? What was the trigger point at that time when you were, late teens? And then you thought, you know what, I'm going to have a crack at being Mr. Australia, and then dedicating 21 months of training and then doing it in record time, which that record still remains unbroken today.
Well, at the time, 21 months didn't mean anything to me. When you're 19 years old, I suppose a month's like 5 months. So to me, 21 months felt like forever. It was continuous training. Look, I didn't have any breaks. Exceptionally, like I'd train 6 weeks real hard. And as a rule, I always have 1 week off. And never train longer than 6 weeks. I never train on weekends or public holidays. So my workouts are just 4 hours, but they were long workouts.
4 hours?
Sorry. I mean 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And my workouts would be 2.25 hours. Each body part, I'd have a 5-minute rest. Low reps, 6 reps, 3/4 movements. And my goal is every time I go into the gym, I had a personal ritual. I must lift a little bit more each day. Otherwise, I get angry with myself. Mm-hmm. And 9 out of 10 days, I would lift that little bit more. I made sure I didn't lift too much more because I wanted to win every day and not win one big day. It's pretty much I wanted the journey. I loved the journey of getting there, and I wanted to continue that journey. In the gym, how I ended up competing, everyone in the gym was saying, Rock, you got a physique, why don't you go in and compete? And I said, I wasn't really interested in competing back then. I was more interested in just becoming stronger and stronger. Not necessarily bigger, just stronger. The fact I wanted to be stronger, well, you ended up being bigger, you know.
Yeah.
You know. And they go, oh, why don't you compete? And then I said, oh, you got a diet. And then I said, oh, well, I'm on this diet. I mean, I really want to get stronger. If I start dieting now, it might slow that up. I goes, could I compete without dieting? And I said, oh, yeah, you can compete without dieting. You mightn't win. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll just go in for fun. I did compete in 2 shows, got nowhere. Didn't even place. I was the biggest man there, but didn't place. But the feeling of loss, I did not enjoy. So I figured the third time I'm going to diet. Considering I did enjoy showing off. Yes, so the third time I dieted, and then I started. I won the novice Mr. Victoria, and I got third open at the time. I didn't diet enough, but I got third open. Then from that point on, I continued in the gym, training heavy and hard, and then anyone goes, oh, there's a contest in Queensland, it's the Mr. Australia. And they said, you want to go I don't think you're ready, Rock. You got all of Australia's best bodybuilders going to this show. And I said, but you'll look good up there. And I said, Peter Lindsay's going up there, and he trained at the Oasis at the time, and he was the biggest champion. He won everything back then. I go, oh, he's going up there. Oh, we're mates. I'll go up there with him and compete. And I said, all right. So I started training, and I figured, oh, Mr. Australia, I don't want to look too bad, so I'll diet. I'll diet a lot longer. Yeah, so it was in my sights, the Mr. Australia, and I was 21 years old. And after dieting, I just went on a short diet because I don't like diet. But I found out through a lot of people that tuna, fish and fruit. So I decided I'll diet 6 weeks before the contest, and I went on 6 cans of tuna fish and about a kilo of fruit, mainly apples, pears, and also I had a craving for ice cream, so I had just a little bit of ice cream every second day, and that was my diet. But I trained and I was still trying to get personal best, even though I was losing weight for the diet, and I was achieving that. And I trained harder, and I did train a little bit faster. I figured there's a contest. I trained a bit faster because I noticed that if I train faster, my body heats up and I sweat. And in my mind back then, I figured it's not sweat, it's fat. So I decided to train faster. Instead of having a minute's rest, I reduced it to about 50 seconds. Does make a big difference. And only for 6 weeks before the show. And I noticed myself getting in great shape. I go, oh, gee, I'm very happy with myself. So I figured, I think I'll please the people in Queensland. Yep, so I ended up in Queensland with Peter Lindsay and a few of my friends there. And people, this bodybuilder Bill Robinson at the time, who was in a tour class. There was 3 classes, but they combined them all at once. And Bill Robinson goes, gee, could I have a look at there's a bit of a rumour about a dark horse competing. And I didn't know there was this dark horse. People must have saw me in a gym and it must have got out there. And I'm saying, who's the dark horse? I don't know. So everyone's saying dark horse, and I'm over there, gee. And I go, look out, Rock, Peter Lindsay. No one knew who the dark horse was. I didn't know it was me. So Bill Robinson had a look at me abs, and he felt flawed. He felt flawed. And I go, gee, I've scared this guy. He's already won a lot of titles. I must be in good shape. So I competed. Peter Lindsay competed. They did have 3 classes, but they put all the classes in one. And I won, and Peter Lindsay got 3rd. Bill Robinson got 2nd in the class I was in. And then later, I believe they separated the classes, and I think Bill Robinson got the tour class. So he's also a Mr. Australia at the time.
Yep.
And I don't know about the others, Yeah, I suppose he complained. Just nobody winning. Yeah.
Well, the dark horse came through in the end.
Yes, I was very happy. And also that night, I won the Australia's Most Muscular Man, and I won Best Abs and Best Back. So it was a real good time for me.
Mm-hmm, for sure. I mean, 21 on top of the world, 21 months worth of training, and here you are taking on the top bodybuilders in the country. That's a pretty remarkable achievement to do that in such a short amount of time. So what about, obviously there's a lot of schools of thought on in terms of training. I know you come sort of more from the classical and the old school way of bodybuilding, which is to train, put in those hours and hours to achieve the body and the look of that time. What's the science say about, whether there's a drop off in, physical performance after 40, 50 minutes of how the body performs or anything like that? Because I mean, to the average person listening, 2 hours sounds absolutely insane. But I guess that's what you've got to put in if you want to be at the top and have the physique that you did at the time.
Yes, I noticed as I was getting very stronger and stronger, and you are competing against yourself, and it's harder to increase your pain level. I figured the only way I'm going to become stronger, I need to absorb more pain. By that time, I realised why a lot of bodybuilders needed to recover, because their pain level was low and their bodies were wrecked. Where me, because I got a high on pain, I go and get a personal best, and to me, I'm celebrating. There's no pain. There was a glorious feeling inside, hard to explain. And so I was looking for that, what they call pain. I was looking for that feeling. And the feeling did become harder and harder. And then I figured, how do I get that feeling? One day I went into the gym and my head was full of thoughts. And those thoughts were actually making my workouts harder. And those thoughts made my workouts, my body started to drag. And I remember one time that a few times I had those thoughts, and for the first time I felt my body needed to recover. And I go, oh my God, finally I'm experiencing what these guys experience. What have I done wrong? I go, I don't like that. Don't like that at all. and I got to get rid of these thoughts, and I don't even know what these thoughts are. I was working, you get a bit older, you start looking at other things in life, like, your career and things like that. And they might have got in, and I wasn't aware of them getting in, right? So I tried an experiment. Next workout, after feeling like I actually needed to recover, I didn't like that. I figured I'd go in the gym, and if these thoughts, I'm going to get rid of these thoughts. So I got my head and I banged it against a bar. And it was a good bang because I felt the pain in my forehead. And I started training with that pain in my forehead, got rid of the thoughts. There was no thoughts. I was training with just a pain in my forehead, and I got back into training the way I used to train. And that got me back where I needed to be.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do that all the time, but I figured that cut me losses. I think I'll do it with banging my head against a bar. Yeah.
You got to find what works for you, especially the importance of mindset. And you've spoken about that a couple of times over since we've been talking. You mentioned about being in the right frame of mind, and particularly about that you had this thought in your head that every time you went in the gym, you have to lift heavier. And I think that's that discipline and that mindset which sort of separates, I guess, the boys from the men, or the champions from the normal person competing. So how for you, obviously reaching the top in your profession, what was the importance of mindset? And obviously you just spoke about banging your head and how critical that was for you to get those negative thoughts out. But obviously setting your intention, having a vision of where you want to be, and just putting your mind to it.
Don't know how to put that exactly. All I know is in my mind, I was competing against myself. In the early days, the gym was full of all strong men, and naturally I wanted to be better than all them, but I never actually competed against them. I figured I go in there, it's my world. It's my world, and the only way I'm going to succeed is I have to better myself, right? And it's not because it was written for me to better myself, not because someone else said I got to better myself. It's just instinct. I'll put it down to instinct. Something inside me said, you're a man, you want to be strong, and the only way to be this strong is to push. So my mind said, I have to push. So everything's about I have to, and if I can't do it, well, I won't get there.
It's critical, isn't it? Like you just mentioned before about the importance of you do it for yourself, and your only benchmark is yourself. Because I think, I'm also a personal trainer, and one thing that I do see is a lot of people look for external factors to achieve their goals. They want to look like X, Y, Z, or they're doing it to impress someone on social media. Whereas it seems like you've had that internal hunger and that drive for constant, improvement.
Yes, I did have that internal hunger. Yeah, you pretty much, Anthony, you hit the nail on the head. Yes, it's the internal. That word, just internal, says it all. Internal ego, internal anger, internal journey. Because when I was training, I didn't see it as pain. I saw it as like going to the movies because, once you get that feeling, and that feeling opens the door. I think I must have opened the door to some fantastic chemistry that I felt like, I lived to a certain point, and the mind and strength connection and the rep connection opened the door to an incredible feeling. And that's the addiction. The addiction is getting that feeling. And the only way to get that feeling is for me to push. And that was the motivation, to get that feeling.
It's interesting. I had another guy on the podcast last week, Dustin Brown, who's a yoga teacher. And exactly what you've just mentioned, we talked about flow state. And that's exactly what it is. When you get into that flow state, everything becomes effortless and you become so focused on that. And you're in this state of like you said, creativity, you've got energy, you've got all this power that just sort of comes towards you. And I think that's when you come from being so focused on achieving something and doing something. And it seems like you were in that state when you were working out.
Yes. Yeah. Anthony, you hit it again. Right.
I've got a hammer in my hand.
I tell you what, man, you're good. Yeah, that's as you said it.
Yep.
That's what happened, Mm-hmm. But I'd have a lot of fun, Sometimes my ego gets the better part of me, and I like to make friends in the gym. I wasn't one to lift my chin up, but I was one to be cheeky. I like to be cheeky and play people against each other, more for personal entertainment, but not in a mean sort of a way.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, shit stirrer, you like to stir the pot a bit.
Yeah, I like to stir the pot, and people love being stirred the pot, and a lot would love to be chosen to be stirred, you know. And people would come up to me all the time and go, Rock, could I train with you? And then I say to these guys, yeah, as long as you could lift at least half of what I lift. Okay, because I don't want to spend half my life taking weights off bars. Okay, and I go, yeah, it's a deal. I could. Rock, I'm strong enough to train with you. Right, so I get all these real strong guys to train with me, but then I thought I'd have a little bit of fun. Instead of resting 1 minute in between sets, I thought I'd make it 50 seconds. Because the deal to train with me, they have to follow everything I do. And if they can't keep up, the next time they could train with me is 3 months. That was the rule around the gym. If you train with me and you last, good, you're with me. You fail, I don't want to see you for 3 months. Like training with me. And that was well known around the time, and I burnt them all. I had a guy, a great champion bodybuilder today by the name of John Moore. He did that. I burnt him. Milton Haji Giorgio, yeah, he got burnt. Another great champion. The list goes on and on. All these great champions got burnt. You know? But they come back. They all came back and managed to go through workouts with me.
Well, I think it's important for both parties. I mean, for yourself, I mean, because you were, at the top, and you are hungry, and you're constantly wanting to improve. And as such, you want to surround yourselves by other people that are just as hungry and want to work just as hard as you. And I think that's probably part of it. Why that you're putting this out there, but also for them, they see it, and because they want to train with you, because you are the best, or you were the best at the time, it forces them as well to lift their game, and like you said, to try and at least get up to the standard that they can work out with you.
Yes, Anthony, that's true, because they'd all the ones I burnt will be counting the days to have another workout. Rock, it's a week away, don't forget me.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they loved it. They loved being burnt. I think they felt more alive.
Yep.
But one thing they all admitted, that they trained harder. They all trained to have another workout with me and survive. It's like another, additional to their goals, it's another goal to them. And it became well known around the Finlay's gym, and it got out even in other states of Australia. Yeah, no, it was a good times. We had a lot of fun doing it, and they loved it.
Yeah. So that was your time. Now I want to focus more on how you moved overseas to America, to New York, and you won New York's Most Muscular Man, and also you're a cab driver in Brooklyn for I believe 9 months.
Yes,
that must have been pretty interesting.
Yeah, you're right, Anthony.
Yeah.
I was. Yeah, that was. Well, I was 21 years old, and I won a Mr. Australia, and the Mr. Australia, when you win a title that big, I don't know, I probably was expecting some brass band to come along, When at the time, Mr. Australia, everyone wanted Mr. Australia, and at the time when you won Mr. Australia, sometimes winning something that big and that great, you feel like you're entitled to something. And it's not a good feeling. Here I am, I just won the biggest title in Australia, I get a lot of personal praise, this and this, but no one came knocking on my door for a job or, hey, do this or do that. There was nothing there.
Yeah.
And I go, gee, well, at least I feel good. I got the Mr. Australia.
Yeah.
So I figured, I better, when you're 21 years old and you hold a title like that, you start to think, oh, one day you want a family and you got to feed your kids. So I figured I got to do both. I could continue my journey of being strong, and at that time, I wanted a family and feed kids. So I needed to. At the time, I said, "There's nothing in Australia for me. If I'm Mr. Australia, and no one's knocking on my doors, the exception of." Cases of supplements, throughout Australia, I'm getting all these free supplements from all over Australia in boxes, and I was never into taking a lot of pills, but I started using them because they're there for free, and I've got to be honest, I took 90 to 100 a day.
Really?
Yeah.
90 to 100 tablets a day?
Yeah, I took 90. They were for free.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I started hitting the gym, it gave me a little bit of a high. But, something bad happened. I forgot to take them for a week, and I got a low. I got a low in the gym. I've never experienced a low ever in my bodybuilding career. And I figured, these are no good. I'm not in control of my body. The pills are. So I dished them. Took me 9 months to wake up, and that was hard work, taking pills for half hour, half an hour taking all these pills, Yeah, so I ditched the pills. What I would have preferred, instead of cases of pills, someone offering me some good work instead.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. I chose New York because there was an organisation there called Dan Laurie's. It's a bodybuilding organisation, and the Weirders are also there. But I figured, and they were running Mr. New York, a lot of titles, and I figured I needed to go to a place I'm not going to be bored at. And New York seemed, I chose New York because it seemed like so much excitement and danger. That'll make me feel alive. I needed the feeling of danger. And you hear so much danger versus so much great things in New York. Compared to all the other states of the USA, it's like New York was it and everything else was boring.
Yep.
That's my reason why I chose New York. Well, I got to New York and I went there with my savings, and at the time $2,000 was a lot of money back then, and it bought me a couple of months. Then I really got to like New York and the danger, and the gym I was at. They recognised I had a great physique. They gave me a free membership, and they even clothed me. And I got a lot of respect, a lot of respect, like you're a big champion over there. And it was the gym was called Bath Beach Bodybuilding. Lou Ferrigno trained there. Didn't see him, but they said he'd trained there.
By marketing tactics.
Yeah. So while I was there, I enrolled in Dan Laurie's organisation. And I started training for the Mr. New York. And, I did everything I did back in Australia. And the problem is I was running out of money because, dieting and preparation, and the show was 2 months off. I was running, so I needed a job. And I started knocking on doors, looking for a job. And they all said I needed a green card. And I said, okay, I'll get a green card. Well, apparently to get this green card, it's like trying to find a wife. It's like you got to go through so many gauntlets to get this green card.
Yep.
And if I succeed, it'll take 2 years. Well, the green card was no good to me. So then I said, I went into this car service and I said, how's this work in this car service? And they said, oh, you got to have your own car. Oh, really? Yeah, and do you check anything? No, you have your own car. You get 70% of the fare. We get 30%, and you keep the tips. So if I was to roll up here with a car, no questions asked, I got the job. And he goes, yes. And a woman by the name of Mrs. B, she said yes. So then I went into the gym and I asked all the guys there, how do I get my own car? Well, not being a resident of the USA, it's not easy to get your own car. But apparently there's so many rackets going on over there. And I said, oh, really? And they said, yeah, but to get all this, you have to go to the black end of Brooklyn, where all the blacks are, and whites are not allowed there. And I said, well, can't anyone here do it? And he goes, no, you've got to go over there. I'll give you a number. There's a guy named Thomason, and he's got one leg, but he'll do everything you do. He's done it before. He's known for doing exactly what you want. I go, really? And what's it cost? $800. And I go, a lot of money back then. Yeah, but all the paperwork you need, you don't have to do, and you'll need $1,000 for the car. He'll give you the car. So $1,800. And I go, okay, that was everything I had left, right? Just about. So how do I get into Brooklyn? He goes, oh, no, you'll be mobbed. You won't even get there in one piece. I said, well, could you come with me? And he goes, no, we'll get in trouble. We'll get mobbed with you for sending you there. And then I said, where is it? I goes, and then he gave me a map, and I said, oh, geez, so it's a bit of a risk. And it was like 2 kilometres out of the danger zone to go in there, get all the paperwork, and get out. And I go, all right. And I'm a big bodybuilder, and I wore a singlet.
Yeah.
So I figured, hey, some of you will die if you get me.
Yeah.
So I wore a singlet, and as soon as I went, everyone's looking, and I didn't like the way they look. So, oh my God, I figured I'd be in trouble. So I decided to be a nutter. I decided to spag my head up, twist my head around like I'm a nutter and talk to myself and lift my head up in the air. So I did this. Boy, that worked.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they're looking at me differently. Yeah. So I got there, and Thomas and Rocco, oh my God, you made it. He goes, yeah, I saw you. I saw the way you rolled in. That was good, mate. You an actor. Okay. No, okay, good on you. So
survival tactics of Rocco, act like a nutter.
Yeah, so I got in there as a nutter, and then he gave me the car, gave me everything. And God, I didn't realise it was left-hand drive. No one told me about this left-hand drive. So I get in the car, and all of a sudden, I'm on the opposite end of the car. I'm driving like a nutter on the road. I caught on within minutes, though.
Yep.
Because the last thing is I want police to pull me up, So I got caught on, drove my car straight to B&C Car Service, and straight away I got a job. Yes, and I lasted there 9 months, And
what was that like being a cab driver in New York? I'm sure you've got some interesting stories, or you would have seen some interesting things that happened.
Well, the thing is, I had an accent. I didn't even know I had an Aussie accent till I got to New York. And a lot of the women used to love bodybuilders that got trapezes, of all things. And I became popular. Everyone was waiting for my car. You got to get it in turn. They can't just roll up there and say, ask for me, because you've got all these other drivers there. So I arrived there and I got all these people in a queue. Which is good. I always had business.
Yeah.
Some of the other drivers didn't like it, but they got used to it because they didn't lose any money, Yeah, but there was a few challenging occasions. I had one guy, a Puerto Rican, who wanted a trip from Brooklyn to Kennedy Airport. And it was a $17 fare. And it was a lot of money. $17 back then is a lot of money, Anyway, he was in the back of my car. I got in and I got to Kennedy Airport, and not quite. I'm doing a right-hand turn on sort of a freeway there to get in at Kennedy Airport. And within seconds, he opened the back door and shot out like a bullet.
Really?
Yeah, he ran off. And I go, just so quick, I didn't even think. I put my car, turned the car off, put the brake on, left my car there, still with the indicator lights turning, and shot out after him.
Imagine that on a busy New York highway, you've got this bodybuilder chasing after someone for a cab fare.
I know, and I'm running, and I'm running fast, and he's running. He didn't realise I'm chasing him. Then he started looking around. I yelled out, "You stop! I'll get you!" And then he saw me chasing him. And I mean, he's like a stick, and I'm a big hulking man.
Yeah.
Chasing. He started yelling and screaming for help, help, help. While he's running, he's screaming and yelling, and I'm chasing him. I said, "I'll get you." And I'm gaining, and in the end, I got him. And I'm getting my air breath, because it was a chase, and I'm puffed out, and I just hold him there while he's yelling and screaming. And he's yelling and screaming, so I just punched him in the nose. Shut up, while I'm getting my breath back. And I got my breath back. And then when I got my breath back, I said to him, I want $17 and $10 for the run. And he goes, I got no money. He goes, I really got no money. I go, you got no money? You do this all the time? You do this all the time? You got no money? Oh, I got no money. He goes, show me. And he showed me all his pockets and everything. You got no money. Okay. He started yelling and screaming and yelling. He was yelling and screaming. He looked busted, And to this day, I don't even know why I've done this. I took one of his shoes.
What?
Yeah, one of the runners. I don't know why. I don't know why I took the run. I just felt like I had to get something from this. And I left him there, left him in the pavement there, yelling and screaming. I could see some people coming up. And I got in my car, and I'm driving back to Brooklyn, and I'm holding this shoe. Okay. What on earth possessed me to get this shoe? I just threw it out the window.
Well, that would have fit well when you're walking down Brooklyn like a nutter to try and find the guy to take the car from.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right, Andy.
Well, that's such an interesting
I'll
story.
tell you what, there's so many incidents. That's just one of many.
I'm sure there's a lot of stories.
Yeah.
We've been going for nearly 45 minutes. So I want to get more into the side of things, how, because you retired fairly early. I think when you came back from New York, you were still in your early 20s, and that's when you sort of moved from the professional bodybuilding side and you took more of an entrepreneurial approach and started the professional bodybuilding organisation here in Australia. So you're able to tell us sort of how that transition happened, what made you move from being a bodybuilder more to the other side, actually creating the organisations for the bodybuilders?
It all started when they were running the Mr. Victoria at the Finlay's gym. We're running Mr. Victoria inside the gym. And I go to myself, great, this is such a nice title and it's inside the gym. And I go, this guy's got money, he's got 2 gyms. And I go, God, how pathetic it is that they can't give the bodybuilder something, at least run it in a decent hall. That went through my mind. And then I started asking around. I said, gee, I'm sure I could do better than that. And I asked a lot of the bodybuilders, hey, if I was to run a show, would you compete? And I'll have some prize monies. There'll be not monies, I'll have some prizes. And a lot of the bodybuilders go, yeah, Rock, we'll compete. And I go, all right, I'm going to run a Mr. Melbourne. In 1979, I got my brother-in-law to help Peter Napoli, and I said, you could help me run the Mr. Melbourne, and we'll be co-promoters, And he was all excited to be part of it. So, went around and I said, and let's have some women. And I said, but women don't enter a show. Oh, well, let's make it a show. Come on, let's have some women. And I'll put a bench press contest on too. A Melbourne bench press contest. Let's get some strong men. Let's make it entertaining. Let's open the doors to outside people wanting to see bodybuilding and strength and some beauty. So we got onto a model agency and we got them to get Tenant women to do their catwalk on our show. Mm-hmm. They loved it. They get publicity. Then I put on a Melbourne bench press contest. And then we had the Mr. Melbourne, and the first prize was a colour TV. A colour TV back then cost like $700-800. It was a fortune. It was back then, like, you had to be known to be rich to have a colour TV. Everyone had black and white TV, so every bodybuilder wanted that colour TV. That was our big prize. We had other prizes. Yeah, we put it on, and a bodybuilder by the name of Sammy Onitas, he won the Mr. Melbourne and he got that colour TV. Mm-hmm. The show was such a big hit, to my surprise, because we put on the women and the contest, and I ran around trying to get everyone to come and watch me show. We ended up with 1,000 people to watch that show. That was a record of that time. Even the Mr. Australias didn't get that. Mm-hmm. That was a record. And then I go, hey, we'll do another. And from then on, we did the Mr. East Coast. Same. Peter Napoli couldn't handle it anymore. He stressed out. Don't know why he stressed out. I did most of the work, but he stressed out. He couldn't handle it. And we even made a profit. We gave away all that money. We did everything. We made some good money. He got his 50% share, and he stressed out. So, so I went on my own for the East Coast. Then the East Coast, we gave away prizes. Same thing, everyone happy, good titles. And then I go to myself, not enough. These bodybuilders have got these titles. It's like me in the Australia, and it's parties all over after you win the titles. You only got your mates and friends to share. Parties all over. So that got me inspired to do a magazine, the Muscle Australia magazine. I figured these guys have got to live on. And the only way they lead on is for me to get a magazine going. And at the time, I was working as a bouncer, and I did the odd henchman job of collecting money. I worked for the Schneider brothers, and to work for them, you got to be good. And I worked for them, and they ran. I did this, the bouncing at the Summerhill Hotel back then. Mm-hmm. No one would work at the Summerhill Hotel, and he paid me that much extra money to work at the Summerhill Hotel because there's guaranteed trouble no matter what.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't care trouble. Yeah, I'll work there. And so I earned a lot of money.
So if we can now go back to the magazine side of things, like I said, you started obviously the bodybuilding competitions here in Australia. Then you got onto the magazine side of things. And in a sense, what I think is the most fascinating is you created a whole ecosystem in the bodybuilding industry. Not only did you create the competitions for the bodybuilders to come, but then you also created the magazines in which you could advertise them and then promote them to the rest of the world. So what was that like starting the Muscle magazine?
Well, the magazine, to launch the magazine, at the time they wanted $3,000, which is an absolute fortune back then. And all my savings, briefly, because I wasn't much of a saver, I'd spend as quick as I save, but the last few jobs, and I got paid a lot of money doing the henchman type of work, I had more than half the money. But my brother Sammy had some money, and he was a better saver than me. And I said to me, brother Sammy, hey, do you want to come partners in Muscle Australia magazine? So my brother Sammy joined me in the first 8 issues of Muscle Australia magazine. He left because it didn't make profit. And I said, the profits will come later. I go, the magazine costs so much, and to get it back, I said, it takes time. Anyway, it didn't make profit fast enough, so he left, and I ended up with the magazine. And then I go to myself, I've got to do something to make this magazine to pay for itself. So what I did is, no one would buy advertising in a magazine back then, because even though the sales were 10,000, which in today's magazines like considered real good, but back then it's considered nothing, because all magazines did a lot better than that. So I said, all right, I'm going to use the magazine for myself. I'll create products. I said, I got John Egan, who's a real strong man and one of the feared men, to make bodybuilding equipment. So he made all this bodybuilding equipment, and I put it in my gym, put it in my magazine, and I get a cut, and he gets paid for the equipment. Then I did this with supplements, other people's supplements, and I filled up the magazine with all these ads, but they weren't paid ads for everyone else. They were pretty much my ads.
Yeah.
But it got money in. Got money in, and the money, I didn't make a lot of money, but it paid for the magazine. I could keep the magazine going. Then I started, and the bodybuilders were getting recognition. The bodybuilders loved it, and I was getting popularity. Every bodybuilder throughout Australia, because I bought the magazines everywhere throughout Australia, they were in every newsagents, wanted to support the magazine. So, and I wanted to support my products, knowing that by supporting me, they support themselves. So with their loyalty, the magazine started making more money, and money started coming in. And I go, this magazine's actually generating some money. So then I came up with the idea. I spoke to Peter Lindsay and a few other bodybuilders, and I said, let's start an organisation. Okay, we need an organisation so the best bodybuilders won't retire. The only way for the best bodybuilders not to retire is to put up some cash. Okay, because after they won their titles, what's there for them? They got to eat like everyone else. I said, and let's put up some real cash. And I go, this magazine's making some money. Okay, let's put most of what we earn into the organisation, and we'll make our money later, build it up to reap the reward later. And Peter Lindsay goes, can't we get money now? No, that's not the deal, Peter. Okay, look, most of the money's got to go back in, and we'll get a little bit. We'll get a little bit to keep us going, but no real money. It's got to all go back in. If it's a deal, you're in. So I got Peter Lindsay to say yes. I got Shane Douglas to say yes. I got my brother Sammy. He was still involved in a magazine. And yes, and we formed the PBBI, Pacific Bodybuilding International. And it was an organisation straight away designed for professional. But we're not silly. It was open to amateurs. So you only become a professional if you take the money. Not by my rules, by all the other organisations, which there wasn't much around. They're still running shows in gyms and dingy little places, but yet I was a threat to their little existence back then, and they wanted to stop me. And so they said, anyone that takes money are banned from my organisations. This is what they said. And I go, they're really making it hard. And I said, oh, fair enough. So we nothing I could do. And, so we ran and we offered, I think it was the Mr. East Coast. We put up $1,000 cash. A lot of money back then, $1,000 cash. I think the average wage back then was like $150 or $200 a week. So it was like 5 or 6 weeks' wages. So that was money. $500 first prize, second $200, and it went down the line. And everyone took the money except one guy, Neil Brophy. It was $50 prize money, and he goes, nah, stuff it, I'll take it too. So we thought all the lower end. They go, if enough of us take it and all the best take it, what's he going to do?
Yep.
And so we started running more shows with money, and our shows become popular because we had, I introduced a very first women's bodybuilding show at my show. No one's ever done it before.
First in the country.
Yeah, first in the history of Australia, I introduced a women's bodybuilding show. It was a Miss East Coast, and I even know the first winner, Ann Suter. She's the pioneer. Ann Suter, she's the first champion, the first woman ever to win a contest judged for women's physique contests. You know, they've had like beauty contests like I did earlier throughout Australia, but that's all they were. But that was the first. Yeah, so it wasn't popular, but we had a few women, a regular few, and it grew with time. Yeah, and the money increased, and it increased so much that we were a power in Australia. We were getting audiences. We were getting sellout audiences of 3,500 people. We're the only people that could completely fill the Dallas Brooks Hall. One show we had to turn away 500 people because I don't accept standing room only. Everyone had to have a seat. All our shows were packed, and we were getting that much money, and we were starting to put up $10,000 cash a show.
10,000?
10,000 cash.
What year was this?
1988.
Wow.
And we started giving money in, we started running a pro circuit, shows in South Australia and shows in Sydney. And these bodybuilders were earning a lot of money. Sonny Schmidt would get, out of the 10,000, first prize would be $6,000. It's a deposit on a house back then. That's how good it was, you know. And that was popular. It worked. It kept the best there. And the best bodybuilders, because they compete regular, they all had names. My magazine pumped the best. I put them on radio, and they all had names. Their names were so strong, a lot of them ended up opening up successful gyms, their own health food companies, and a lot of work. They were getting big-time money everywhere they went. And the magazine just kept pumping the same there. And what brought the audiences in is quality competing against quality. You know, we had main events. We didn't have, I didn't have classes. I wasn't one for classes. I wanted all the best. I had like different divisions, but no classes. So all the best really had to fight it out. Yeah, and it proved to be very, very popular. To this day, I believe that they still can't get the audiences I got. You know, I'd have 40 contestants, and 40 contestants will pull up 3,500 people.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Because I think they're even today, I think they're struggling to get people to shows.
Yeah, and that was our Australia. Our Mr. Victoria would get, with about 30 contestants, would get 2,000 people. Even the little shows did well. Yeah.
So how do you think that's evolved and changed over the years? I mean, obviously from when you were running the competitions and when you yourself were bodybuilding, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at the way the physiques have changed over the years, you know, from, I guess they call it the golden era or the classic era. You know, they've got these perfectly looking physiques, they're lean, they've got, you know, nice lines, they're not veiny, whereas you look at some of the bodybuilders today and they're freaks. You know, what do you think's changed over the years from that perspective?
Two things have changed it. The judging system allowed big-bellied physiques in, and the new drugs, hormones. See, in the 70s, there was hardly any drugs. Just about every bodybuilder was virtually natural. Yes, there was a few that took it, and the ones that took it took very little. The steroids, and they were steroid drugs. Hormone was unheard of back then. You know, They don't even know what it was back then, right? So they were pretty much steroids. And the most steroids could give you is 10%. You really had to do everything traditionally, and 10% is all you get. So all the bodybuilders still had to respect, even the ones that took steroids still had to respect, because they know the credibility was so little. So it didn't really affect them that much. And then it continued. Now, the first time we knew hormones came in a reasonable, sizable way was just as I left, was 89. 89 hormones started coming in.
We're talking like HGH, human growth hormone, or we're talking
human growth hormone coming in, and it came in, and then they got better at it. Then they started stacking insulin. 88 was only the one human growth hormone. So even though they were taking hormones, they started getting what's called a big belly bubble button, which a lot of them had surgically removed. But the big bellies haven't really entered. They started a little bit. Then they came in with added hormones, so human growth hormone mixed with animal growth hormone. Then you got insulin hormone, and you got other hormones. So then it became a hormone world, and the judging system opened a door to them. The judging system discriminated against classic bodybuilders, threw them all out, and opened a door to these hormone, as we call them today, freaks. And being called a freak to them is the biggest compliment you can get. And and you can't blame the bodybuilders. You know, the bodybuilders, like every bodybuilder, they compete to win. You know, so I don't blame the bodybuilders. They got to do what they got to do to win. If that guy's doing that, well, they're going to do that. Or if he's doing that, they're going to do that. You know, they'll risk their lives to do it, just like other sports. They'll risk their lives. So I feel sorry for the bodybuilders. I do not disrespect them any less or hate them any less. You know, I just wish they got looked after, you know. So please, I'm not aiming at these bodybuilders. But I know, being involved in the organisation, I know why the freaks threw out the classic bodybuilders. Back then, too many judges, mainly in Europe, were big suppliers of hormone. They were drug traffickers. They were making so much money and they got into judging and got others into judging and got to run the organisation. They were promoters as well, mainly in Europe. And because they were the promoters and they ran the shows, the weirders knew what was happening. The weirders tried to stop it. Joe and Ben Weirder realised they tried to stop it, and they did for a short time, but then all these guys become such a power force, and the drugs were so huge, and their profits, like I know one guy, I won't mention his name, right? One guy who owned the biggest chain of gyms in Europe, and yet the profit from the drugs overpowered all that chain. You know, shows you the sort of money involved, you know. So, I knew the sport was doomed back then. The weirders tried again to stop it and started having Frank Zane winning the Olympia contest to turn the other way, to say goodbye to the big boys, and it actually worked. Frank Zane was a beautiful body, had all those lines. Weirder was good. He opened the world to all sizes that could win if you have the symmetry, the beauty, and the dimensional muscle. So Frank Zane deserved, I mean, he was good. He beat Arnold Schwarzenegger once, you know. Yep. He was really good. So the Zane-type body opened business everywhere throughout the world. But then something changed. Then I believed that all weirdest distributors, all these big rich men, not only were running gyms, running the organisations all over Europe, and Europe bodybuilding was bigger than America and all the other bodybuilders under the name of Weirder. All these organisations overseas were also distributors of Weirder products. So Weirder said, if we continue our push against the hormone bodybuilders, they had an ultimatum. They would split all this European group. You can't fire them. You can't get rid of them. They're too big for that. they will start their own. They pretty much told the weirdo, look, it's up to you. Either we're with you or against you. So the weirders, sadly, the almighty dollar got to the weirders. It is sad. It was a sad day for bodybuilding throughout the whole world because the almighty dollar got for weirders, and it was sad for the bodybuilders because all these poor old bodybuilders, the only way to win is they've got to be junkies. If they don't get it. And when you got to Mr. Olympia, that opened the door to Lee Haney. Was Lee Haney the first freak allowed to win? And then Dorian Yates was the second, and it became impossible. It sent a message throughout the world. Gone are the days where symmetry, dimensional muscle, beauty is completely thrown out of the judging system altogether. The only way you're going to win my titles is to freak up. Hence, natural bodybuilding was born. And the problem with the natural bodybuilding back then is a lot of natural bodybuilders didn't have the classic bodies. They couldn't draw. You know, it got to all the bodybuilders that couldn't win the titles, early natural bodybuilders, all the wannabe greats, filled up natural bodybuilding, and the problem is there wasn't any talent in the beginning. So you had all these bodybuilders that couldn't place anywhere, winning all these natural bodybuilding contests, so it never really got off the ground. So the weirdest were still winning, but the naturals kept growing and growing, and throughout the world the naturals grew, and I believe to this day they have more people competing in their shows than ever.
Well, it's definitely a growing movement. I'm seeing it more and more. You know, even like on Instagram, you're seeing a lot more like natural guys coming through. You're seeing a lot more of that the push for that classical look. Yes. And what's interesting is I never actually thought it from that perspective of what you mentioned about how the industry changed, and the reason why it changed was because of the money and the people involved. And like you said, they probably became more drug dealers as opposed to judging the criteria. And it's, you know, you follow the money and you see what's happening. And it's interesting that you said that all of the judges and the judging criteria was one element, but then you had the whole supply of the drugs on the other side. And that's probably led the change and the push more towards the freak show as opposed to the natural show. But you know, like we just said, the natural movement is making a resurgence. So, you know, for young bodybuilders or people wanting to get in shape at the moment, what advice would you give to, you know, obviously yourself, you're a classic and natural bodybuilder. So what advice would you give to those that are wanting that more classical look and shape? What type of workouts would you recommend, exercises?
Well, Anthony, I recommend...
so many good recommendations from Rocco on working out and nutrition. We ended up recording over 80 minutes of his thoughts and wisdom on working out and nutrition. So we decided it was best if we kept all of those juicy bits into a separate podcast. So that concludes this episode, and I hope you can tune in next week as we'll deep much deeper into what it takes to build a strong body and the nutritional elements around that. The podcast will be released in the following week, so stay tuned. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this fascinating episode. I hope you got as much out of it as I did, and there might be a few pearls of wisdom in there which are really going to resonate with you on a certain level, which you can then implement into your ways of being. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on your app and share to as many friends as possible who you think might be able to benefit from it. I'm always looking for ways to improve this podcast and make it a better experience for you. I'd be extremely grateful if you write a review on your app and share your thoughts with me. More information can be found at feedmymind.com.au and also on our social media pages. You can follow us on Instagram at feedmymind_ or on Facebook at feedmymindau. Thank you, and stay curious.